Yes, indeed. 1212 Radio Culture. We live on iCulture TV. My name is Kwesi Eswan Bakun. Reaching you from Studio 1, Texas, USA. Studio 2 is on standby to give you the second interview, and then we have the rest of the show for you. But I'm starting it all off in Studio 1, Texas, USA, and I have our first interview for you. Yes, we did yank our guest from something very important, so we're not going to waste time talking too much. And at the same time, we're also going to suspend the editorial for the tail end of the show. Something in the background called Adulation for Dinkinesh. Adulation for Dinkinesh on the What the Money reading by African Roots. Proudly produced by Kormanse Music. Now let's go straight and bring on our guest, and we are going to speak with Dr. Kwadwo Oppong Wadie. Dr. Kwadwo Oppong Wadie, of course, is no stranger at all to this platform, but let us do something before we bring Doc on. Studio Newsroom, can you please play the video for me very quickly, so we can start the interview based on the Studio 2, the Y down interview, the Y down video, please, and then we'll take you from there. Thank you. Right after this, we'll bring on Dr. Kwadwo Oppong Wadie.
Cut diplomatic ties with former colonial ruler France with immediate effect. Burkina Faso's ruling junta has accused Paris of persistently acting against its interests. France has called the move hostile, but it is reviewing a response. Well, nonetheless, Burkina Faso's decision widens a rupture with the former colonial ruler after years of worsening ties over security, sovereignty, and alleged foreign interference.
Le gouvernement du Burkina Faso.
The government of Burkina Faso hereby informs both national and international public opinion that it has decided to sever its diplomatic relations with the French Republic, effective as of today, June 26, 2026. This decision follows a thorough assessment of the current state of bilateral relations between Burkina Faso and France. Indeed, the essential conditions for promoting relations based on mutual respect, reciprocal trust, respect for the principle of non-interference in internal affairs, and respect for national sovereignty are not in place.
Burkina Faso's Minister of Communication further accused France of supporting subversive networks and terrorists and harboring new colonial ambitions. Burkina Faso claims the regime currently in power in France is against its interests, and hence the nation has chosen the path of responsibility and sovereignty.
We will pause it right there and go straight to Dr. Kwadwo Oppong Wadie. There is a lengthy video, but I think this is the crux of what we want to talk about today. And we want to say thank you very much, Doc, for joining us today. We know we removed you from something very important, the family thing, but we very much appreciate you. And for something like this to happen and for us not to check in with you, would not be usual. So please forgive us and give us a little bit of your time today, Doc. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
What was your reaction? What was your initial reaction when you heard about this? And while you answer that, can you tell us what the real implications of this are? We'll go into the details, of course, but just as a statement, what does this even mean?
Sure. First of all, greetings, Empire. I hope you're doing well, and greetings to your audience as well. I think that there are several things here. First of all, Burkina Faso is a sovereign state according to what sovereignty means for countries. It is a sovereign state, and it can decide who it wants to have relationships with and who it does not want to have relationships with.
Yeah.
Now, and I also don't think that Burkina Faso just woke up in a vacuum and decided that from now on, we are not going to have any relationships with France. Burkina Faso, I believe, is a very informed states, they also gather intelligence. They know certain things that they are not going to make public, things that informed their decision in severing the ties with France. Right?
Yep.
But it's also interesting that France also said that they consider the actions of Burkina Faso hostile, and they were considering a response to that. And it's also very interesting that just this week, Mali again has come under terrorist attack, right? Yeah. So the question needs to be asked: are all these connected? I think they are all connected, right?
Yep.
Again, Burkina Faso is not acting in a vacuum. Remember that they have different ways of gathering their own intelligence, and they stated categorically that France is not acting in their interest, and that France is pursuing neo-colonialist and terrorist support activities, which they are not willing to tolerate. Yeah. So that is where I think it is right now, right? Let's not forget that the colonial powers, in their minds, they never left Africa, right? Even though they gave us some kind of nominal independence when it comes to the ownership of the resources in Africa's soil, they think that it's theirs, that they should control those resources. And let me quote or paraphrase from a former French head of state, Jacques Chirac, who said, France will quickly slip back to the level of a third world country if not for Africa. Right? In other words, the economic support that Africa gives France is what makes France what it is. And therefore, France is not willing to give up that quote unquote cheap, cheap in terms of what they actually have to give up to acquire the resources in Africa. I want to talk about resources. We're talking about mineral resources. We're talking about human resources, all kinds of resources that they take away from Africa every single day. So because countries such as Burkina Faso have taken a stance that they want to control their own resources, these are the crux of the matter, that they want to control their own resources. France, which thinks that those resources belong to it, is unhappy, and therefore is trying to do everything to destabilize Burkina Faso and regain control of those resources as it had done in colonial times. So that's where things stand right now. And I think that even in contemporary times, listening to a lot of African leaders, even those who are not hardline like Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, are all seeing something very wrong with the picture where Africans don't benefit from their own resources. And I'm talking about countries making things like 2%, 5%, 7%, 10% of the resources that come from those countries. The 90%, the 95% are all accruing to these colonial powers. Let's take another example quickly. Like from Niger. Prior to Niger taking on the different course and joining the AES as it has done now, was literally the source of all the uranium that was being used to power electricity in France. And there was no electricity in Niger. Niger had, apart from Niamey and maybe a few other places, Niger had absolutely no electricity, right? government comes and takes over and renegotiates the deal for the sale of uranium, and all of a sudden, Nigeria is one of the fastest growing economies in the world. So I think that when we talk about neocolonialism, Kwame Nkrumah told us that is the final phase of imperialism, right? And that it is in full action right now. And that those countries which want to wrest that colonial yoke from their backs um, is not going to have it easy, but will prevail in the end.
Doc, do you think France is not just worried about Burkina Faso, but is concerned that it's going to have a spiraling effect? Because first of all, I'm surprised that all three AES states did not take that action, right? We only find Burkina Faso taking that action. The other two members of the AES have different degrees of disengagement, if you will, right, with France. But I'm surprised that, first of all, Burkina Faso did this separately. And then secondly, do you think France is concerned because they think it's going to be a spiraling effect, not just within the AES, but with other Francophone African countries?
And even Empire, even the concern is beyond the Francophone. If you noticed that the French President Macron took every item off his schedule and made it a point to meet African heads of states in Nairobi about a month or so ago. And most of the African countries he met over there were not necessarily the Francophone countries. It was more Anglophone and Lusophone than Francophone, right? In other words, not only is he concerned about what happens in countries such as Burkina Faso having a spiraling effect on the Francophone countries, but France is also concerned about this spiraling effect extending to the Anglophone and the Lusophone countries. And even a little bit more, they also now want to extend their sphere of dominance beyond the Francophone countries into the Anglophone and Lusophone countries. And it is for a simple reason that they see their economic livelihood directly tied to African resources. And they see the loss of countries from their stranglehold in the Francophone sphere as an opportunity to gain new countries into their fold from the Anglophone and Lusophone arenas.
Interesting. Speaking of which, ECOWAS comes to mind, right? Recently also, we saw President Mahama meeting ahead. They had a meeting together, or at least their delegations met or something to the effect, France and Ghana. Also, we see the ECOWAS kind of on its last leg, kind of, and there's a direct link with the ECOWAS and France.
Right.
Is this also something that's increasing the anxiety for France? Just like you've outlined, not just the Francophone countries, but the entire African continent with its influence, even among the non-French-speaking countries.
And this is a very important point that you raise, because let's take a country such as Benin. Benin has, Benin is, given the recent history, right? It's very interesting that Benin has indicated that it wants to join the AES. Now, look at ECOWAS. When we think about ECOWAS and we think about what its intentions have been in terms of being a regional base for all the West African countries, and its ambition to even develop a region-wide currency, and how that has been stifled by France, primarily because of the CFA franc that is used widely in the ECOWAS region and what that means for France, right? So if ECOWAS is also weakening, then by extension, that also extends to to France. Let me put it that way. By extension, France also is impacted. So yes, France is also very concerned about um, the decline of ECOWAS and what it can do to sustain it as it brings economic benefits to it.
Thank you very much, Doc. Now let me draw your attention to something else that possibly happening in the region, which you have actually hinted. Benin, indicating that it wants to join the AES. That would afford the AES a seaport, which is
Absolutely.
a very vital, which is going to be very vital
Yes,
to its development. Comment on this for me, please.
absolutely. And quickly, Togo also has shown some kind of disposition to look to the AES for membership, and Togo is also the one which is actually acting as the country that links Burkina Faso to the sea in contemporary times. It has
Mm,
given access to its to Burkina Faso to its port. Now,
mm,
Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger are all landlocked countries, and gaining unfettered access to the sea will be something that will strengthen the entire regional bloc. That is, when I say entire regional bloc, I mean the AES in this case. So yes, if Benin does succeed in joining the AES, that will grant AES countries access to the port, and this will also be something that will impact economies in this country. Right now, Burkina Faso benefits from the arrangement with Togo, but there can be more benefits accruing to Burkina Faso, for instance, if it has um, access to the port in Benin as well. And then of course, we have Mali and Niger also gaining access to the port should Benin succeed in becoming a member of the AES. And that is something that is also not sitting well with France and the neo-colonial powers, because if you look, they're also doing whatever they can through some West African countries to prevent the rise of um, these newly forming blocks in the West African region.
mm. Doc, thank you very much. Now, Ghana plays a vital role. Ghana is obviously not francophone. Ghana is a key member of the ECOWAS, and Ghana is very friendly with Burkina Faso. Ghana has an envoy to the AES. How is Ghana situated to possibly forge some kind of arrangement, if you will, between the AES or Burkina Faso and France? And do you think we should do that at all?
I think that judging from public sentiment, a lot of people in Ghana and the West African region at large are not happy with the neo-colonial arrangements, and I don't think we'll tolerate any new regional arrangements with France. Now, you mentioned what Ghana can do. Yes, Ghana has, I think, I want to say, upcoming chairmanship, if it hasn't already happened, for the ECOWAS, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it also has a special envoy to the AES. And I think that the reason why the president created the office of the special envoy was to try to seek some kind of channel through which the AES countries can be brought back into the ECOWAS bloc. But given the present state of the region and the fact that countries such as Burkina Faso are now severing ties with France, it will be very difficult to convince those countries to come back into the ECOWAS fold, because they already see ECOWAS, and rightly so, as a tool of the Western powers. And this is because if you cast your mind back to when the coup happened in Benin, well, let me even go beyond that. When the coup first happened in Niger, countries such as Ghana and Nigeria in particular were threatening Niger with a military invasion if they did not restore the said president back to power. So the question becomes, whose interest are you acting? That is, Ghana under Akufo-Addo and Nigeria and also Ivory Coast. Whose interests were you acting that required you to move beyond seeking diplomatic solutions and threatening countries such as Niger with invasion? Secondly, when the coup happened in Benin, it was Nigeria that flew planes to go and quell it. It is said that there was some communication between France and Nigeria, which saw Nigeria acting, in other words, as a proxy for France to quell that coup in Benin. So because of these actions, when countries are suspicious of your ties to France and what that means in terms of their independence and their sovereignty, they are justified in being suspicious, and in that way they will work in any way to sustain the gains regarding independence and sovereignty that they have.
And what a difference policy and leadership makes, right? Because under the same Ghana, we have and you remember that legendary photo of Traore shaking elbows, bumping elbows with Akufo-Addo versus hugging and shaking President Mahama, and then coming to his inauguration and all that. But then again, we're also seeing that the people actually make the difference, because I think that if the people hadn't intervened, Nigeria, Ghana at the time probably would have made the foolish decision.
I know. Can you imagine that? Because the public sentiment in Ghana regarding allowing Ghana to attack a country such as Niger, a brother sister African country, was extremely high. The sentiment was against the government of Ghana doing anything like that, right? So the people really do matter, and we cannot put that to the background at all.
And you do remember our last interview with the former Deputy Defense Minister, where he mentioned that Burkina Faso was cocked and ready. They were not going to be playing at all. I know you need to go, Doc. But before you go, finally, please, I had a question I needed to ask you first, but I know you have to go. So let me chip this in before you go. Haiti.
Yes.
On the 222nd anniversary of the famous battle that formed the first Black Republic.
Right.
Africa's real estate outside of the continent.
True.
Right. They also made entry into the FIFA World Cup.
Right.
Now, significantly, they had a jersey which depicted their victory, the anniversary on their jersey. FIFA made them change that.
Yes.
Quickly, please. Comment on that before we go, please.
You see, Haiti is a very important country when it comes to the African world. Now, when I say the African world, let me be clear. I don't limit that to the continent of Africa. I'm looking at wherever the sons and daughters of Africa are. And why is Haiti important? Haiti, as you rightly said, established itself as the first Black republic in the Western Hemisphere in 1804. And they did so by defeating, at that time, the #1 army in the world, the army of Napoleon Bonaparte, France. They defeated the army of Spain. They defeated the army of the United Kingdom. And they also defeated the army of the United States. So ever since then, Haiti has been made a pariah, so to speak, and an enemy of the Western powers. And even if you look at here in the United States and how the government relates to Haiti, like we see, for instance, the government turning back Haitian migrants, right? But at the same time, really granting an open door policy to Africans of South Africa to migrate to the United States. Now, having said that, the pride that Haiti exhibits or demonstrates with its history is something that the Western powers also don't find enthusing. And therefore, when Haiti decided to put that victorious part of their history on their jerseys, FIFA was quick to ask them to take that off the jersey, which I think was rather unfortunate because it is something that we hold dear, like the whole emancipation. This was a ripple effect that really saw many countries, even including the United States. You look at United States, once the Haitian Revolution succeeded, most of the rebellions and insurrections among African Americans occurred right after the Haitian Revolution. Haiti, the African American community, Frederick Douglass went to Haiti, right? And then this also spiraled onto other Caribbean countries, which also then had an impact on the independence movements in the motherland, Africa. So Haiti remains a very vital part. And again, you talk about spiraling effect. FIFA, I'm sure, was also concerned about the spiraling effect that would have on other Black countries should Haiti be given the opportunity to depict their victory on their jersey during the World Cup. And I think that Haiti has been a country that has never seen itself as not being an African country. This is very important, right?
Yes.
Haiti was very instrumental in the independence movements of Africa, and post-independence has also always sought to become a member of the now defunct or almost defunct organization.
I don't know why that hasn't happened yet,
but
to be honest with you.
Yeah, because actually it happened, and then the OAU quickly reneged and said that because Haiti was not on the continent of Africa, they could not allow it. But it was clear that there had been some communication between them and the Western Pride, because they did grant Haiti admission to the OAU and then quickly afterwards reneged, right? So Haiti remains, and even if they didn't allow Haiti to have that depiction on the jersey, we still know the role that Haiti has played.
You know what FIFA actually did is bring the story to the limelight.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
That's what's happening right now. Thank you, FIFA, but for you.
Absolutely.
All right, Doc, I know you need to go. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. Your final words on the impact of Burkina Faso cutting diplomatic ties with France before we go, sir.
Sure. I think that African countries, we need to take our sovereignty seriously. Sovereignty is not only limited to like Independence Day parades and that kind of thing. It's also has a full-fledged meaning. What does it mean to be a sovereign country? What does it mean to be able to decide for yourself as a country? What does it mean to have non-interference in your political affairs as a country? And that when you see any country, engaging in such, those countries on the African continent should be bold to take actions that augur well for their citizens, such as, severing ties, if necessary, with some of these former colonial powers. So, I think that, France has threatened Burkina Faso with a response, saying that it has taken a hostile action. But again, I don't think Burkina Faso just got up one day and said we want to sever ties with France. It has been accusing France of involvement with backing terrorist groups for a very long time. And it is also very interesting that just as this occurred, Mali is also seeing another resurgence in terrorist attacks. So it
And
remains.
Mhm.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm expecting Mali and Niger at the very least to follow soon.
Yeah. I think everything is tactical, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think Burkina Faso, being in the position it is, has decided to take the lead. But I wouldn't be surprised if in the very near future, Mali and Niger also follow suit.
And by the way, the AES is showing the way, if you ask me, because they
Absolutely.
set up their own passport, which is working fine for
Absolutely.
them. They have their, they have their own currency systems and all of that. They are merging the economies. Their ministers are planning
Creating a
together.
central bank. Yeah.
You see, this is what African unity is about. This is what,
Absolutely.
and I think they're showing the way. And as I
Absolutely.
always say, I think they can show the way for the rest of the continent to follow. I personally think that the ECOWAS should think of merging into the AES.
Yeah.
Why not? Right?
Why not?
And maybe not call it the AES, but
Something else. Something else
function with
will-
the principles of the AES, rather
Absolutely.
than as a proxy for France or
Yes,
any
yes,
other
yes,
of these
yes.
colonial powers.
Absolutely.
Dr. Kwadwo Oppong Wadie,
Nana.
that's fine. Yamisha.
That's a part.
Nananum Enson Kao. Greetings to the family.
That's it. Yeah, do the same for me. Greetings to the family.
Yo,
Yes,
thank you very much.
That's the part.
Dr. Kwadwo Oppong Wadie, a Pan-Africanist. He's an author. He is an educationist. He's based in Chicago, in the United States of America. We are also expecting to speak with former Deputy Defense Minister, Major Derek Odro. We will bring him on. But in the meantime, Studio 2, stand by, please.